Alhamdulillah, it's nice to see you again. I'm happy to be in Portsmouth. I love the city, mashallah. I love you guys, mashallah, for the sake of Allah. It's absolutely great being here. Really, thank you very much for coming. I'm a little bit disappointed with the sister today. What happened to her today? You know? But I think some of them might be still on holiday, you know? But alhamdulillah, nice to see you guys back again. And the most important thing, the recap. I really would like to know now, some of them, I recognize some faces. You have been here the last time you were here. Let's see if you remember something. Okay? Let's see what has stuck to your mind, what is important. Okay? I'll ask you some questions. We got some gifts also for the questions, okay? So the recap is very, very important. Now, before we start with the Americas, now who can tell me something about one thing? 7-Eleven, what was that? Do you have a pen for me? What marker? No, what marker? 7-Eleven, quickly. What happened with Al-Andalus? A little bit more precise. Al-Andalus, yeah, what?
It's open.
Who?
Okay,
one person. Tariq bin Ziyad, okay. Where did he arrive?
Gibraltar.
Spain.
Okay.
Portugal, Spain, and until
There is a specific place which has his name.
Jabal Tariq.
His name was Tariq.
Jabal Mountain.
Gibraltar. Gibraltar, right?
Jabal Tariq.
Okay, so 7-Eleven. No? Okay. 7-Eleven, Gibraltar, right? So what is nowadays in Spain, right? British colony. Okay, so from there on, okay, Tariq went inside actually, okay, towards Spain. Where else did they go? The same time? I mean, from the base in Spain, they went into Spain, yeah? Where else did they go?
Portugal.
Good. Portugal is part of?
Europe.
Part of, what is the peninsula called?
Balkan. The Andalus.
No, who said Balkan? Please.
Iberian.
No. Listen.
Okay, so
Where are you from?
Malaysia.
Malaysia. Now I'm going to tell you, Malaysia, okay man, yeah, no, Nigeria, okay, next to each other. So that's exactly what you just said. Balkans and Spain and Portugal. Which peninsula is that? Iberian Peninsula. Why is it called Iberian then? I mean, just to remember that. Why Iberia? You know the airlines of Spain? Iberian Airlines. Why Iberia? What is Iberia? Iberia. What is that? The first tribes that went down to settle in Spain, in the early times, okay, these were the Iberian people, Iberians, okay? These are the first tribes that went down to settle in Spain. Fine, Iberian Peninsula, two countries, yeah, Portugal and Spain. And then of course Gibraltar, which is a British colony nowadays. Okay, now, what else? Where else did they go from Spain? They went on further where?
France.
Okay.
And the borders of Germany.
Who can tell me something more?
Italy.
Who can tell me something more about France? Wait. They went into France. Oh, no. Now, France. Say something about it. You said the border of Germany. Come on. I'm not going to give you gifts like this. Really not, guys. Come on. The borders of Germany. What's the border of Germany? France and Germany. There's something in between.
Switzerland.
Oh my God, Belgium. Belgium is in the north. Between France and, yes, Switzerland. Okay, so what about Switzerland? Who can tell me something more about Switzerland? Specific person. If you want to get, it has to be a specific person. It has to be somebody. Come on, tell me about Switzerland. Very important point. What about Switzerland? What?
Tour and Portier.
What is Tour and Portier? Okay, that was good. Let's go. Tell me some more. Come on. You're close to getting a book. Come on. Tour and Portier, what is that?
Like two tribes, or two, they met together and became
Who
one.
met who? What?
The
Tour is one city, Portier is another city.
Yeah.
What happened there? You remember the date?
I can't.
Century?
14.
Not 14th. 11th century.
Huh?
11th.
No way. 11th century, honestly now, 711 they arrived in Gibraltar. Within no time they were in France. So,
Okay, 8th century.
good, 8th century. Tours-en-Poitiers, two cities very close to Paris. What happened there?
The Muslim army got stopped there.
No, they joined armies to fight the Muslims, to stop them from moving further.
Okay, look, something very important happened there. The Christians united and they fought the Muslims. A very important point to get out of history. We're not doing that just for the dates. I told you last time, it's not important to know the dates, but certain dates are important. And this is one of the dates that is important. The opening of Al-Andalus, 711, 732, Tours-en-Poitiers, 1453. These are dates that I want you to remember. I don't want you to remember every year. But specific dates are important because then you can put everything in perspective. Then you would not say 10th century or 11th century or 14th century. Okay? Just to understand a little bit, what is happening around you. The same like location. I'm not saying that you have to become geography experts, but you need to know where the Iberian Peninsula is. You need to know that the Iberian Peninsula is next to, and it's not next to Indonesia. All right? So these are things that are quite important, right? So 711, Tariq bin Ziyad, okay, arrives in what is nowadays Gibraltar. Why is it called Gibraltar? Because Jabal Tariq. What does Jabal Tariq mean in Arabic? The mountain or the hill or the rock of Tariq, right? And it's nothing else but a big rock. Okay? So now, they move on into France. 732, Tours-en-Poitiers. The question is, always in history you have this. The question if it's really true that the Christian armies united and fought a whole army of Muslims. That's another question. If it's really true, we don't know that. According to some historical sources, the Muslims were just a group, a band of small Muslims, a group of some people, like the number of, I don't know, 100 people or something. It was not a whole Muslim army, according to some sources. So it was, but it was psychologically very important until nowadays. For the Christians, for Europe, it is very important to go back to this date. And why I'm insisting on learning this date. There's no board marker. We had last time. No board marker. Really not.
Maybe
What?
from next to Anas.
Why it is important to learn certain dates? It's because there is a movement now in France. There's a movement in France. And they always mention one number, 732.
What's that?
These guys are racist, Islamophobic, whatever you want to call them. It's a movement like movements anywhere else in Europe nowadays. Everything is moving against Islam. Nowadays you have black and white together having a common enemy. Racism is Islamophobia. Good. Racism has become Islamophobia nowadays. Okay? So that's why if you see this in France, if you see this on the internet, if you see this people who are making propaganda against Islam, they use this important date, 732. That's where Tours-en-Poitiers, where this battle of Tours-en-Poitiers, of Tours and Poitiers, where these battles happened. Okay, so that's why I'm insisting. This one is quite an important date. They use it nowadays. So for you, having done a course like this, you should be aware of this. When somebody says 732, we will never forget. What are they talking about? They're talking about having won over the Muslims. It's a victory over the Muslim army. That's what they're talking about.
And they win.
Sorry?
Who's win that time?
Well, the official sources say that the French won, or the Christians won.
Yes.
But again, as I said, it's not clear if this was really a big group Muslim, if it was the Muslim army, or if it was just a Muslim group that went some bandits or something. We are not sure about that.
Yes.
But according to sources, it was not the army. It was just some,
Yes.
most probably. Okay? But for the Christians, it was important because then psychologically, this plays an important role for them. For them, it's like we stopped the Muslims at Tours-en-Poitiers, close to France, to Paris. Close to Paris, 50, 60 kilometers from Paris. Very important psychologically. The other date is 711, right? We just said it, 711. 711, so Al-Andalus, obviously, Gibraltar, right? That's what mentioned too. And another date, the third date, much later, This one here. 1453. A very important date. Again, for the relationship between Islam and Christianity, between the Muslims and the Christians, between Europe and the non-Muslims. Oh, the non-Muslims and the Muslims. A very, very important date. Why? What happened then?
The end of Andalus.
The end of Andalus was in
1432.
was in 1492, when the Indian Christopher Columbus thought that you arrived in Asia. That's when the end of Andalus was, Granada. Now, no, 1453, something else happened very important.
Was it the conquest of Istanbul? Or-
Yes, you found it right. Okay, excellent. Good. Yes, indeed. Conquest of Constantinople. A very important point. What happened then?
In Turkey.
The Ottomans. Yes, the Ottomans. You know, Al-Andalus is finished at that time. 1453, there's not a lot happening anymore. On the other side, the Umayyads are finished, the Abbasids are finished, you know. Now we're talking about the Ottomans. The Ottomans, who are they?
The empire that ruled the Arab world.
Okay, what specific one?
Muslim war.
What? Who? Who were they? Where did they come from?
Turkey.
No, they didn't come from Turkey.
They traveled to
Central
Turkey
They came
from their own land.
between like Russian and Caucasus, what they call this, is like Indonesia or
No, you're mixing up geography here now. No.
Mongol, what they call Mongolia.
They come from the
Yeah.
Caucasus Mountains.
Okay, look, guys, listen, please.
It's confusing.
I'm gonna scream, you know. Okay. All right. Let's keep it. All right. Let's start. Okay. Now, the Ottomans.
You can raise the board, you can write.
Yes. But I don't want to write down everything. Okay. Just want to start with this one.
Put it down.
How do you put it? A bit higher?
Pull down.
Just pull down.
A little bit higher.
You pull it.
And you put it on. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. All right. We have the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. Okay. Come on. Ottoman Empire. Where did these Ottomans come from? Who were they? Where did they come from? To?
They came from Central Asia.
They came from Central Asia and they established themselves where?
In Turkey.
Okay, not necessarily Turkey, because there was no Turkey at that time.
Kurdistan.
Mongolia.
They came from the area which is nowadays, well, Mongolia is a part of it, okay? Central Asia is massive, big, very big, okay? Now areas like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Mongolia, yes, these areas, yeah. So now where did they move to? They moved to Minor Asia. Turkey is Minor Asia. Minor Asia. Minor Asia. This part, what is nowadays called Turkey, used to be called Minor Asia. Okay? Little Asia. That's what it is. So now, they moved there. And then, they opened Constantinople, right? In 1453, we said already. Who did that? Who had the honor to do that? There's a hadith. Rasulullah is talking about a very powerful army, a very powerful person in a hadith. He's talking about, who was that? Sultan Mehmed Fatih or Muhammad Fatih, yes. Okay, why was he called Fatih?
Because you open
The opener, okay. All right, okay, now. That was in 1453, okay. Now, okay. All right, now name two important sultans during the Ottoman Empire. Two. Forget Mehmed Fatih. Mehmed Fatih you just mentioned, okay? There are two others I would like you to remember and I would like you to mention.
Solomon the second.
Suleiman, okay. Sultan Suleiman, what, who? The
soft.
The magnificent.
man.
Magnificent.
Okay, and who?
Salim the Great.
Salim the Great.
Salim the Grim is one, yeah, okay. Well, one, look.
Salim the soft.
Salim drunk.
There is a Salim the Sot. There is a Salim the Sot. What does it mean, the Sot?
The drunk.
Okay, now what happened to him? Okay, yeah, come on.
Thank you.
Come on, one. Here you go. Salim the Sot. And Suleiman the Magnificent. And somebody mentioned Ibrahim the Man. No, who did you mention?
Salim the Great.
Salim the Grim. There's another one, Salim the Grim. There were three Ottoman sultans that had strange titles in English. There is one, Selim the Grim. There's another one, Selim the Sot. And there is,
Salima.
not Selim, another one. Somebody else who had another title, which was a little bit strange. Not magnificent, exactly the opposite.
Oh, it's the one in the box. What's that? Ibrahim?
Ibrahim the Mad, yes, Ibrahim. Ibrahim the Mad, okay? Why was he called the Mad?
Yes, because he was in the jail for a long period. His brother reported there. Okay, suddenly after his brother died, they took him. He's only a sultan. He can hold that, and he's because he's still he's that the palace.
To become the next one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. And okay, that was Ibrahim the Mad, right? Why? Selim the Sot is drunkard, right? Somebody who was drunk. What exactly do we know about Ibrahim the Mad? We mentioned last time he became crazy because there was a certain system in the Ottoman Empire, right? The system that a brother would kill another brother. That was before. But after that, what did they do? They would
Put it in the palace.
put them in the Topkapi Palace nowadays. The Topkapi Palace has become a museum nowadays in Istanbul. There are cages in there. There's a cage in there you can go and see, golden cage, meaning the whole room is a cage basically. And they had a harem in there. So they had women in there, they could drink, they could do whatever they wanted to. But they were not allowed to leave the palace. So this Ibrahim was 23, 24 years from the beginning, from his birth, until he had never been outside of the palace. Can you imagine that? This man, he could just watch out of the window. He had never been into Constantinople. And then they went to get him to rule because his brother died. That was Ibrahim the Mad. Now, Selim the Sot. Why was he called Selim the Sot, the drunkard? Why? For obvious reasons, you think, right? But tell us what exactly happened.
And he stopped.
It's a misconception, right?
He stopped drinking and died.
Okay.
From withdrawal system.
No. Okay, I'm not going to give you another book. Now be quiet.
Why?
Jazakallah. What happened with Ibrahim, with Selim the Sot? He was called the drunkard, the Sot. Why? Girls.
Because he was drunk.
He was drunk, but why? What happened exactly? No. There's a misconception. People think when they hear the Sot that he was drunk the whole time. What happened? What happened exactly? It's a misconception. We need to know. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're doing these courses to understand the
Because
misconceptions.
He was strong, and they want to give the bad image about him.
Initially, he was a drunk.
He was a threat in his drinking party, and at the same time, he was a good in his.
Okay, no, yeah, okay, but why was he called the Sot? Then he was a drunkard, right? Who said it? Initially he was drunk. Who said it?
Initially, he was a drunk. Then he repented.
Very good.
Then
He made tawbah.
He made tawbah.
Yes.
He made tawbah. That's a very important point, guys. It's not nothing, you know, because Allah always comes back to you when you make tawbah, right? Don't forget that. Okay? And we have to understand these things, okay? More than other people do. Now, he made tawbah, and his own physicians told him, do not stop, because your liver, everything got used to do you drinking over years. So the man, he said, no, Allah forbids it. It's haram. Yes, it's haram. But you cannot stop yet. No, he said, finish. And within a small period of time, he died. It gave up on him. His bodies gave up on him. His body, his organs gave up on him. Okay? So indeed. Okay? So, his body gave up on him. Very, very important point. So, he was called the Sot in English. But that does not really mean that he was all his life a drunkard. He used to be a drunkard and he gave up on it. And that's a very important point. Because if Allah forgives it, we have to forgive too. So this man had changed his ways. Okay, so that was Selim the Sot. And who else did we mention? Selim the Grim. Why did they call him Selim the Grim? Now I don't know if I mentioned this actually, to be honest. Yes?
There was some incident with the Christian Greeks, and then he ended up killing a lot of them.
Okay, exactly. Now, there was an issue, like the issue with Rasulullah ﷺ and the Jews in Medina, okay, because they use this also against the Muslims, okay, nowadays. So that's why we have to know these things. They say Rasulullah ﷺ actually killed the Jews as being Jews. That is not correct, right? Yes. Did Rasulullah ﷺ persecute the Jews in Medina?
No.
Who said yes? Did he persecute the Jews in Medina? Did he persecute them? Did he go to Medina while he was there and persecuted the Jews? Were the laws against the Jews? No. No. Why was a certain tribe, not all of them, why was a certain tribe kicked out of Medina?
Because they've invalidated the treaty.
Because they went against the treaty.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very important, right?
Yes.
Because in the West it's used against the Muslims. They say, look, you say always, your prophet was always so kind and good. Look what he did to the Jews. So it is a very, very important point here. Very, very important point. Okay? So no, it was not because they were Jews, otherwise it could have happened before already. Why did he do it earlier? So it happened because of a specific time. Good. Now, what did we say? Yeah, Selim the Grim. He was called the Grim because, according to Christian authorities, they say that he persecuted and hated Christianity. That is nonsense. Absolute nonsense, because the Ottoman Empire in the Balkan Peninsula, the majority of the subjects were Christians. Okay? Until the end. The majority of the people living in Serbia, in Bosnia, in Greece, they were Christians. Now, the revenue from the Ottoman Empire was coming from where? Revenue from for the Ottoman Empire. Who paid for the Ottoman Empire? The Muslims? The zakat? The jizya. The jizya was more important than the zakat. So do you really think the Ottomans were interested in converts? They were not interested in people accepting Islam. They were not pursuing it. But people did accept Islam. Many of them. Okay? So now, Selim the Grim. Again, there was a treaty with the Christians and they broke the treaty. And for that reason, he went against a specific group of Christians, specific area. Not against all Christianity and against all Christians in the Ottoman Empire. That's impossible. Okay? Logic tells you it's impossible. Right.
It's my questions.
Yes, please.
So who paid the jizya? As all the person, all the people, they have to pay personally, or just the country there?
No, people, individual. But the problem is there. Who was collecting the jizya from the Christians? Their own bishop, their own religious authorities. And that's where the problem lay.
Yes.
When we say the Ottomans were suppressing people in Greece, for example, or in the Balkans, then it was not the Ottomans directly, but everything went through the Christian authorities. In the Ottoman Empire, it was like this, like in other empires, in the Muslim empires before, but in the Ottoman Empire, it was like this, that the authority was the Sultan. Who was his right hand? The Christian bishop and the Jewish rabbi. These people were on the same level. For the Christians, they were the last authority. For the Jews, the rabbi was the last authority. Okay? They didn't even have to go, it didn't have to go back to the Sultan. He had no time for that. He said, listen, these are your people, you take care of them. And these are your people, you take care of them, for the Jews and for the Christians. Okay? A very important point again, because, there was total independence from the Sultan. So, the Sultan would just interfere in the very last, if there was a very last authority, the very last instance if necessary. But everything was going back to their own people. It was Christian people who would employ, or who would get Christians to work on their field and not pay them. Although the Sultan said, give them meat at least once or twice a week. They would not do it because they had to save, or they were saving for their pockets. So these things happened in the Ottoman Empire, but they did not happen because of the Muslims. In the contrary, the Muslims were not even involved in there. The Sultan was not involved. They were taking care of themselves. The Christians had their own millet, their own nation, their own area with their own leader, who was a Christian bishop. Okay, so, Selim the Sod, Selim the Grim, and Ibrahim the Mad. Okay.
I have a question.
Well, yes, please.
When they came to collect jizya, for example, they came to me, one jizya, I said, just yesterday I become Muslim, so
Yeah.
I want to pay.
Yeah. That's what they say. The Christians say also nowadays, listen, they became Muslims because they didn't want to pay jizya. But listen, if we know Balkan people, okay? Balkan, people from the Balkans, okay? Bosnians, Serbs, Albanians. If we know these people, then you will understand they have a lot of pride. A Greek person would never come and say, I'm Muslim now. Just for the, like this, just to escape a tax credit or something like this, you know? They would not do that. Because of pride. Out of pride, I don't think many people I don't think many people did that. Some people might have done this, yes. Some people did it, for sure. But the majority, for sure not. As people say, you know? For sure not. 100%. So there's a pride issue, there's a reputation issue, because that time they were living in their communities. So if this person accepts Islam, and they're living among their people, what's he going to do? He will have to move out of there to go somewhere to a Muslim area. Okay? The Ottoman Empire was divided into, you know, into areas. In Constantinople, for example, there were Christians living in a certain area, Jews living in another area, Muslims living in another area. So if somebody out of this community become Muslim, they most probably will have to move. So there are so many consequences, you know, there are so many consequences for somebody to become Muslim. So if you become Muslim, actually you do it out of, you know, free will. Nobody would come and tell you, because again, the Ottomans would lose out on the tax. Zakat, nobody can control zakat. Nobody can control zakat. They would have their people to collect zakat, of course, but, you know, nobody can control zakat. It's easier to control jizya than zakat. How do I know how much you earn? So I come to you and tell you, pay zakat now. So, okay, here, 20 pounds. That's what I have. That's all I have. Okay, 20 pounds, what can I do? But jizya is different. So, do you understand? So, you cannot, you know, that's why it's important to know these things, because these lies that are mentioned against the Islamic empires, you know, are clearly just only lies. For that reason, because we can find out, it's easy to find out if it's a lie or not. Okay. What about 711, 732? There is a certain place that was called Fraxinetum. What was that? Wow. Wow. So, we started late, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what was that? Fraxinetum. Quickly. Fraxinetum.
People of France.
Okay, what people of France? A little bit more specific. So people from France were called Fraxinetum. So what exactly that? Some of them were not here. You would have to explain. That's smiling. Tell us, come on, what is Fraxinetum? You can check your notes if you have them. I don't mind, but tell us, please.
Fraxinetum was in Switzerland or?
France. What happened exactly? What is that?
Take a quick guess. Is it to do with the Franks? So Frank.
It has to do with France.
Frank.
It has to do with France, what the brother said. He mentioned France, but I wanted.
Franks.
Yeah, it has to do
A
with.
certain king. They were called. Is the time of period? Is
Yes,
Franks.
yes. In Arabic, it is Fraxinetum. Okay, so it is. It has to do with the Franks. Yes, it has to do with France. Okay, with the people from France. Yes, it has to do with them. But I want some more explanation. What exactly?
It's a certain period.
Yeah, it's a certain place. It was a certain place. Doesn't exist anymore. Yes, sir.
Town in the south of France. The little one.
Okay. Okay, a town in the south of France, and what is the history about it? So why do I mention this? I could have mentioned Marseille. It's also a town in the south of France.
Isn't it from there they went to? No.
It has to do with France. It is in the south of France. Okay, Marseille is also in the south of France. Toulon is also in the south of France. But why didn't I mention that? Why Fraxinetum in Latin? Fraxine in French.
So which year?
In the 10th century. All right. Now what happened? Fraxinetum was the base of the Muslims in France, 10th century. In the 10th century, what is 10th century, by the way? Just to make this clear again, because last time we had an issue.
900?
Exactly, from 900
To 990.
to 999, right?
Yes.
So 901. So this is the 10th century. Within this period, The Muslims went from their base in Al-Andalus, in Spain. They went from there to Fraxine, which is nowadays a very small, a bigger village, small town in the south of France, okay, close to Fréjus, okay, Saint-Tropez, this area, okay, and that was their base in France. And from there, they went to Switzerland. From there, they opened Switzerland. And Switzerland was nearly 75 years under Muslim rule. Nearly the whole of Switzerland. And what you said before, the brother here said, at the border to Germany, indeed St. Gallen, which is the closest city in the north of Switzerland, close to the German border, that we have sources, that authentic sources that tell us that there were Muslim traders in St. Gallen, which is in the north of Switzerland, at the border to Germany. SubhanAllah, 70 years, 70, 75 years, Switzerland was part of the Muslim Empire. And it was all opened from the Muslims from Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus, France, Fraxine, and Fraxine to Switzerland. Okay? In Switzerland, there are nowadays, you will find this irrigation system that the Muslims set up in the 10th century. Until nowadays, you will find, you know, if you go to the mountains, they organize some tours, cars don't go there, but they organize tours so you can go into the mountains and you can find how the water pipes were put by the Muslims, that time already in the 10th century. And still until nowadays you will find them. Okay. Switzerland, or what was it, Fraxine. Now, I'm not going to ask this question because it's impossible that you know that now. Yeah. Well, who knows what was Palermo called? Palermo. What was Palermo called?
Sicily?
Palermo and Sicily, yes. What was Palermo called under the Muslim rule?
They didn't take it, did they? I thought they didn't capture it.
Palermo was more than 250 years under Muslim rule. One of the last ones to leave, for the Muslims to leave. Most of the Muslim heritage in Sicily, most of it can be found in Palermo. So what did they call it?
Balha?
Yeah, that's where the name comes from. Yeah, but I mean, what was the title to it? Palermo, the city of?
Olive? No?
The city of 300 minarets. Okay.
I get half a book.
All right, city of 300 minarets, okay? So that indicates how Palermo was, you know, was a Muslim city.
Can I just say something? I
Yes,
saw
please.
once a documentary on BBC,
Yeah.
and they said that Sicily was never taken by Muslims. So,
How can this be? I think you misunderstood it. It
no,
cannot.
they said they didn't take it.
250 years of Muslims were there. Palermo
They
is,
said they didn't take it.
Palermo is the only city that has still most of the heritage in Sicily.
Where is
Palermo.
it? And
Maybe that's why.
Switzerland.
No, Palermo is in Sicily. It's in Italy, the island of Italy, in the south.
Maybe they're purposely saying this for, we think, Sicily, and then all these
But they wouldn't be
Europeans come
quite-
from Sicily, so it's nothing to do with Islam. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
What,
But no, it was more than 250 years actually, under Muslim rule, and Palermo was the capital. Palermo was the capital. Okay. Anyway, all right. Well, I don't asking more. Guys, come on, ask me then. I mean, no, this is quite. I'm quite disappointed to be honest. Come on, for the ones who were not here, or for the ones who were here. Now, please come on, ask me questions. And if it's like this, what about? Okay, what about Africa then? We start with Africa. Why did I start with Africa? What is the importance of Africa? Africa, by the way, how many countries in Africa, just to make this clear, because Africa is not one country, right? So how many countries are there in Africa?
There's lots.
Lots, yes? How many? How many people are in China? Lots, yes. How many? How many countries are there in Africa, guys?
32.
More or less. 32, close, but not really
I should still get one.
correct. Huh? 53 actually. You know, now with Sudan also being half, you know, the south. So more than 50 countries, okay, in Africa. So when we say the importance, when we mention the importance of Africa, why did I start with Africa, and why did we mention Africa?
The first ruler was Najashi.
No. Be quiet, man. Yes.
Why?
Yeah, no.
I'm a student as well.
Yes, the first ruler, and Najashi was the first ruler ever to accept Islam.
Is that Algeria, modern day Algeria?
No, Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Habasha, Abyssinia. Abyssinia was called Abyssinia until Ethiopia became Ethiopia. Nowadays, Ethiopia and Eritrea. Okay, this whole area, okay, used to be ruled by a Christian king, and he was very righteous, and he accepted Islam. He died as a Muslim. And we know that why? Because many sources are trying to avoid this. Many sources, especially Ethiopians, do not mention this. They do not say anything, because it's not in their interest. But we know, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they made, when they heard that Najashi died, they made Salah in absentia. That means they were over there in Mecca, or in Medina actually, and they made the janaza for the Abyssinian king who died in Ethiopia, or in Abyssinia. Okay? So that's what indicates that he died upon Islam.
Did his son die as Muslim?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know how it went on later. Okay? Because it was still a small elite at the court that accepted Islam. So that's why they say, it's not important. They say the Ethiopian Muslim is not important. This man maybe accepted Islam, but it's not important because for Ethiopian history and Islam, it's not important. But it's not true. Because more than 60% of the Ethiopians are actually Muslims. It's not 50-50 as they keep saying. Okay. So, that's one thing. So, the first ruler ever to accept Islam was the Abyssinian king, Abyssinian ruler. What else? What happened with this Abyssinian ruler? I mean, what else for the Muslims? Something else first happened.
Yemen.
No, I mean...
Islam came to Europe through Africa, North Africa.
Very good, I didn't think of that, but it's true. Islam came to Europe, to Al-Andalus, through North Africa, through Africa.
Yes.
Who were living in North Africa? Who were these people?
Berbers.
Okay, these were Berbers. Why were they called Berbers?
Berber, I don't know what you're talking about.
Good. Berber, who used to call them Berber? The ancient Greeks used to call them Bar, Var, Var, Var. I don't understand what they're saying. Var, 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 Var.
Like Salahuddin, he's one of them.
No, Salahuddin was a Kurd. He was Kurd. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi was a Kurd.
But it's important, the Barbars was in Africa, the Arab of Africa, I think, or the Arab.
The Berbers are indigenous people from North Africa.
North Africa, yes.
North Africa. Now, like the Tuareg in Algeria and so on. So there are, still nowadays, there are Berber people in North Africa.
Yeah.
The Kurdish people were the original people of areas like Turkey and so on nowadays. And they were promised land, but they were never given the land, right? Ataturk, he said to them, listen guys, you work with me, we fight together, we get rid of the English and everybody else, the Greeks and everybody, and then I give you land. What happened? Big lie. The guy was a liar anyway, so what do you expect?
Yeah. Even he took the waqf of Muslim to him.
Yeah, he was a kafir. He died as a kafir. We know that. Okay? There are scholars from that time who clearly say he died as a kafir. He was a kafir. So there is nothing to explain.
Be cried on, janaza cried.
What?
Be buried as a Muslims and no janaza cried to be done on him.
Yeah, many scholars said, yeah. That time and nowadays, scholars say no. Finish.
Who are you talking about?
Ataturk, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Okay, from Turkey, the president of Turkey, the first president of Turkey.
Founder of Turkey.
So, what was I saying now? The Berber. So the Kurdish people, Asia, and Berber people, Africa.
Africa.
Okay, two different things. Okay.
Who's the famous, from the Berber days?
You mean in Libya, right?
No. The Berber, who's the famous leader or something? I cannot. This is from that group.
You mean from the Berbers? Well, the ones under Italian rule. What was his name again?
Well, they got under Italian rule.
Yeah, under Italian rule. Omar
Mukhtar. Omar Mukhtar.
Omar Mukhtar, Jazakallah khair. Yeah. Omar Mukhtar, you mean, yeah?
Yes.
He was Berber. He was from Libya. He was fighting the Italians. Okay. So not a Kurd. He was but the famous Kurdish warrior was.
Was he
Salah
Berber?
ibn- He was a Berber. Yes. Okay. But these people at that time, it is important to us now, seemingly, because nowadays we're living in a nation-state ideas. Do you understand? when people are talking about history, they're talking about the Turks, and I always hate this, the Greeks and this. But no, there was no Turks and Greeks that time. The Ottomans were not Turks. If you called a sultan from that time a Turk, he would behead you. That was an insult. Calling somebody a Turk was an insult. It was the same like calling somebody a barbarian. You know? Ataturk turned it. He turned it and said, proud to be a Turk. Being a Turk was not something to be proud of. It indicated where they came from. They came from Anatolia. They came from Central Asia. Okay, they were barbarian people living in tents.
Yes.
Okay, yurts. That's what they were, guys. You know, the original people of the land where they went to conquer, basically, were actually Kurdish people and Greeks in Minor Asia. So they were living there before. So they came from Central Asia, but on their way, they accepted Islam, and that changed their structure, and they settled in Bursa. They settled in what is nowadays Turkey.
Stef,
They settled there in this area.
you know the Tatars
Yeah.
that were known, were they weren't just Mongolians, they were
They were
Turks.
also
and
Central
all-
Asian people, Turkic people.
So the Tatars were made up of different tribes
Well, look, yeah.
that settled and then obviously.
Well, Tatar was one of the tribes, okay? We had many Turkish people, Turkish tribes, Turkic tribes, many of them, who spoke Turkish or kind of like Turkish. They did not all understand each other, but they all came from the same area. They all came from Central Asia. The Huns, who came long before them, 300 already settled in Hungary. Hungary is called Hungary because of the Huns, Attila the Hun being there. These were Central Asian Mongolian people. You don't see it anymore, the Hungarians. The Hungarians have become very, very European. But that's where their origin comes from. Their language, Hungarian language, has nothing to do with the rest of Europe. Okay? So, these were Turkic people as well. Okay? Yeah, okay. Okay. I don't know, honestly, I don't want to go on actually. This is something so...
Did you touch upon the Al-Murabitun when you done Africa?
We didn't really mention, yeah, well, we mentioned them, I think. We mentioned them, but I didn't go too deep into them, you know.
So I missed
There's a
that.
group nowadays. Are you talking about a group nowadays, or are you talking about them that
The Almoravids.
Okay. That was one of the, yeah,
Yeah.
one of the, they came also from Africa, and they went to Spain actually to, because a lot was happening in Spain that time, okay? We should not imagine, and I think I've said this, I must have said this, we should not imagine as people imagine nowadays, Muslims, because of our situation nowadays, because we are lower than the gutter, okay? Because Muslims need to have something to look up to. So nowadays, they come up with this beautiful history of Al-Andalus, starting in 711, finishing 1492. But what happened really in between, nobody knows. 700 years, you really believe that in these 700 years, all the Muslims were flourishing and having fun and gold everywhere, the streets were full of, what really? There were Muslims believe, that's not true. There was a golden time, a golden period in Al-Andalus, which was really golden, but after the 11th century, it went downwards, and that's why the Christians came down. Because there has to be an explanation. How come that the last Muslim city, Granada, fell in 1492? How come? It didn't happen overnight. It happened 300 to 400 years. They were coming down slowly, slowly, slowly. And not only this one, but it was Muslim rulers down there who called them to come and help them against another Muslim ruler. So, and that happened a lot in history. The other way around as well. The Christians also asked the Turks to come and help them, and that's how the Ottomans came to Europe. They didn't come because they were so strong and great. They came because they were asked to. The Muslims who came to Spain were asked to come to Spain, right? Do you remember?
Yeah.
How did Tariq bin Ziyad, why did the Muslims come to Spain? Because Spain was so beautiful in 711? There was nothing in Spain that time. The only thing there was is what the Arabs didn't have in the, you know, the Berbers, from the desert. When they went to Europe, they came to Spain, and they saw what was flourishing in Spain because obviously of the earth, of the soil, you know, how fruitful it was. Somebody from the desert, can you understand? I mean, I don't know if you can understand that. I'm not from the desert, but maybe some people who are from there. If you come over to Europe, you think like, wow, mashallah, this is beautiful. You look at the roses and you look at the flowers. Yeah, have you been to the desert? Right? Am I right? In the desert there's nothing. Right? I love the desert, but it's the other way around. My fascination with the desert is because of what I have here, right? Because of Europe. But the other way around is exactly the same thing. So people coming from the desert, coming and see what is flourishing here, for them Europe was a paradise. For them France, the south of France, Spain, Portugal was a paradise. Okay?
Yes.
So you understand this? That's all. But there was nothing else to gain from Europe in 711. Nothing. In Spain there was nothing. Absolutely no civilization, no culture at all. There was nothing going on. Nothing. And the Muslims brought civilization and culture into Spain and Portugal and everything else. Okay? So, oh, sorry.
Who asked Spain? Who asked the Muslims to go to Spain?
Who, do you remember?
King Julian.
Maybe not name. Oh, good. Good. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, give it a Say it loud, please.
King Julian.
Okay, who was he?
He's the king south of Spain. He's trying to fight his brother, King Rodrigo.
His cousin.
His cousin, okay.
Now he's breaking. Now he's tearing it out, you know. It was somebody who was ruling the north of Morocco, which is now still Ceuta is still Spanish. Okay, and he was related, and I don't know exactly, was a cousin or something. He was related to the king of Spain that time. And he said to the Muslims, "I want you to come and help me, right?
Yes.
I want you to come and help me."
His name,
When they went there,
Julian, yeah,
Julian,
Julio, yeah, in Spanish, yes, give it to him, definitely.
Toganas Ledric, what his talk is when he was his daughter in the jail. So that he asked the support of at that time it was Musa bin Nusayr.
Yeah, Musa bin Nusayr, yeah. He asked the support of the Muslims, okay,
Yes.
and he said, "Listen, I want the throne of Spain, and I give you Ceuta. Ceuta is in the north of Spain, in the north of Morocco, which is still Spanish.
Sabta called.
Yeah, Ceuta, they call it in Arabic, yes.
Yes.
But in Spanish it's called Ceuta. Okay? This is a very small part in the north of Morocco, still Spanish. Okay? And he had it. And he said, "Listen, I give you that." That's what the Muslims understand in Africa, they want to understand in Spain, in Europe. Because there was more to gain from. So I said, "Okay, we make an exchange. We go and help you to get the throne back, and you give us Ceuta." Now, when the Muslims arrived in Spain, and it was so easy to open Spain, it was very easy. Within 7 years, they went to Portsmouth. It was so easy to open Spain because also the population, the people living in Spain, the Christians and the Jews, were totally fed up with the rulers. So they joined the Muslims. So they told them, "Please don't go." So this is just simply how it went. And that's when the Muslims decided to stay. They decided to stay. And not only to stay, but to make the whole of Iberian Peninsula theirs for 700 years. Okay? So they did not go there because there was so much to gain. When they were there, they saw that, yeah, they could gain something, and these people want us to stay there. Many of them accepted Islam straight away. You know, they were suppressed by the regime before. In Sicily, when the Muslims came to Sicily, the people who were living in Sicily, they were extremely happy when the Muslims came because they were suppressed by the Byzantine rulers there before. It was Byzantine, the Byzantine Empire that was ruling Sicily before. And the Byzantines did not like the Catholics. They would implement actually a high tax rate on them, and even their own people would pay very high taxes. So when the Muslims came, the taxes that the Muslims asked them to pay was nothing in comparison to what they asked them before. So they said it's better for the Muslims to be here than these guys. That's why it was easy for the Muslims to open all these countries. It was not because they were so strong only. Okay? So it is very, very important fact. Okay. Well, okay. Inshallah, any more questions? I think we just start with that today because otherwise, you know. But please, whoever has made some notes, indeed, as Anna said, make some notes, and whoever has made some notes, go through them again. Any questions, welcome. Maybe tomorrow, inshallah. Go through them maybe today, tonight, if you can, and then maybe tomorrow, inshallah, you can ask me. Okay? Now, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, shall we? What time is it? Wow. Okay, 7:30. What time are we finishing? 8:30 then? Instead of 8?
15 is left.
Okay. All right, inshallah. Yeah, Bismillah. Come on. Now, okay? Talking about this today. Okay? I want to introduce the Americas. Now, who knows something about the Americas? Just a keyword, quick one.
native.
Native. Good. Next one. Anything else?
Christopher Columbus.
Christopher Columbus. Yeah. Anything else?
The Mayans.
The Mayans. Good.
Aztec.
Aztecs. Very good. Anything else? Okay, why the Americas? Why plural?
Sorry.
Why plural? Why Americas? Why not America?
Because
Because,
out of status there.
There were several kingdoms. It wasn't just one.
South and North. You got South America, North America.
You're recording all this, right? MashaAllah, excellent. I have to listen to it again next time. The Americas, because of different kingdoms, guys. Americas, because it's two continents. North America and South America, that's it. Okay? So there is North America and there is South America. Now, which one is North America? I'll make it easy, 3 countries. It's 3 very big countries, starting with
Canadian.
Brazil.
Canada.
Okay, do you see it up there?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Canada.
Canada.
The next one,
United States.
USA and Mexico. Now, Mexico is a country in North America geographically, but culturally, it belongs rather to South America. Why? Why am I saying that? What is that? What do I mean with that?
Languages.
Good. Language and background, right? History. So what exactly what is happening? What do they speak in Canada?
English
And French. What do they speak in US? English and Spanish. What do they speak in Mexico? Spanish. And everything, what do they speak in the whole of South America? Spanish except? Except Brazil, Portuguese. The biggest country in South America is Brazil. And that's the only country where they speak Portuguese, but it's the biggest one. Everything else is Spanish. Okay? Except some small exceptions. Like, for example, look at this here. Why does it do? I don't need it. Why is it doing it?
Maybe the battery?
No, man, don't tell me that. I don't know, maybe. No, there's a way. You can do it like this. Anyway, look at this one here. Venezuela, next to Venezuela, Venezuela is still Spanish speaking. There are 3 Guyanas. There are 3 Guyanas. One Guyana is still called Guyana, and we're living in the country which colonized Guyana. And Guyana is English speaking. It was a British colony. I don't know anybody from Guyana here? Anyway, Guyana. It's still Guyana. It's independent. It's an English speaking country. The one in between is called, now who is from Indonesia here? Anybody from Indonesia? Nobody from Indonesia? Okay. Then you might not know because these people know. Because this country belonged to the same empire that Indonesia belonged to, the Dutch Empire. This Guyana in the middle here is called Suriname. And Suriname used to be called Dutch Guyana because it belonged to the Dutch. Believe it or not, yes, the Dutch.
Dutch is called Holland.
Holland. Okay, exactly. So that was Dutch Guyana, Suriname. And then next to this one is still one, but it's still a colony. It's still called French Guyana. Okay, Guyane Française. It's still called French Guyana, which is a French colony, still a French colony. Overseas department is called nowadays, you know, it's a different nice name for it. They don't call it colony, they call it Département d'Outre-mer, you know, overseas department. And it gets a special right, a special status. So now the people down there, they think, oh, nous sommes Français, we are French, and we are born with a passport in our mouth. So now,
just like Jamaica.
yeah, well, no, Jamaica is not. Okay, Mexico, but Mexico, as I said, because of the language and history, it is culturally a part of the rest of South America because of the Spanish background. But it is geographically a part of North America. Now, this part here in the middle, do you see these islands? What is this?
Caribbean.
That's the Caribbean Sea. Okay, that's the Caribbean. Do you have any idea how many islands there are in the Caribbean? Not 100, but okay, let's leave it for now. Okay. We're coming back to this one. The first thing that I want to discuss is exactly that. I want to discuss the whole issue of the Caribbean. How come the Caribbean is what it is? They divide the Caribbean actually into 4 different parts because of their historical and linguistic background. You have the Dutch Caribbean, the English Caribbean, the French, and the Spanish Caribbean. So it depends on what people speak and their background. So Jamaica would belong to which part? English Caribbean. Okay? Any yes?
There is also Creole languages.
Okay, Creole languages are languages that develop, or anybody has any idea what are Creole languages? Because Jamaica, the official language is not, it's English, but it's also Jamaican English. Jamaican Creole, nobody can understand here. Jamaican Creole is an independent language which developed during the time of the slave trade. And all Creole languages developed from a European language. But they are not all Caribbean languages, right? Some Creoles are not Caribbean languages. There's one Creole which is white, a white Creole is not a black Creole. A white Creole in South Africa. Which one? Afrikaans. Afrikaans. There are white people in South Africa, they come originally from Holland, and they speak a Dutch Creole. Like Jamaicans speak an English Creole. Like Martiniquais speak a French Creole, and so on and so on. Okay? These are languages that developed throughout the time. All right. So, now, a very important part of the history is the transatlantic slave trade. The Caribbean. What do you know about the Caribbean?
Stop-off point for the slave ship.
Okay, so not only stock-up point, but also all the slaves went there actually. Okay, except Brazil.
Where they traded it, made the trade, and then
Also,
they sent them off.
They did also as well, but Brazil also.
Yeah.
Brazil was actually the main point in South America.
Yeah.
That's why the majority of the African population can be found in Brazil. But indeed, the Caribbean was the second one, where everything started basically. Do you know who the first slave traders were?
The Portuguese.
The Portuguese. Why?
They needed to expand their land, so they need more land.
How come it was Portugal? How come it was the Portuguese? What happened to them? I mean, such a small nation. Come on, you don't even see it on the map.
Yeah.
How come?
They couldn't move to Andalus because it was occupied by the Muslims.
Exactly.
So
What
they need to look
happened?
elsewhere.
What happened with Portugal? Portugal was part of the Iberian Peninsula. Is part of the Iberian Peninsula, but was part of Al-Andalus. What happened to Portugal first?
As a rebellion, so they broke away.
Good. So they got rid of the Muslims first. It became an independent country, right?
Yeah.
Or in the 11th century. So it became an independent country, and they couldn't go into the interior Spain, right? Look, if you look at the map, that's Spain, that's Portugal, Spain is around it. So that's still occupied by the Muslims, okay? So they couldn't go into Europe. So they had to go where? To the sea, to Africa or to America. And that's what they did. Plus, they had the means already to do it. The compass was there, the Muslims had brought the compass there. The knowledge that there is land over there was there. Okay, the Muslims had brought all this already. So they went over to America. And they established Brazil and other countries, okay? Fine.
Was were the islands populated before they arrived, or?
Good, yes indeed, they were.
Who was in the Caribbean before them?
That's what's called Caribbean because they were Arawak Indians. Arawak or Carib, the Caribs, okay? They were Indians, native people who were living already in the Caribbean. It was not empty, okay? It was not empty land. They were Indians who you don't see anymore because they're just 1% of the whole population nowadays. They're all gone. They were all killed, okay? All of them were killed. There's basically nearly nobody. There are countries that don't have the native population anymore. Okay. Portugal, I wanted to make one point. The Portuguese, they started this. They started the whole colonial issue, and they started also the slave trade. Why? Because of them being able to move out, having to move out of Europe. But not only this one. Not only this one. The Portuguese were the first people to come on the idea to trade slaves, Africans, abroad, to take them to America to work. How come? Who supported them?
The church.
They were good Christian people. Right, wait a second. They were good Christian people, weren't they? So isn't this inhuman, un-Christian to take people from other countries and the way they were putting them on the ship? Have you seen the slave ships? You know, we saw them last time. They were basically just lying like this. And it took them months to go from Africa to America. And in the meanwhile, many of them died and were just thrown overboard.
Wasn't the church propagating that they weren't human or something?
What? What were they saying?
They were saying that they have no.
They had no soul. They had no soul. The Pope was asked, because they were also, you know, they had a little bit this feeling like, is this good what we're doing? So they asked the church, can we do that? Yeah, man, no problem, man. They have no soul.
Was it Jewish?
Indeed. Indeed. The Portuguese, they were two brothers.
Two brothers. Yeah, you said it. Yeah.
Two brothers, and they were Jews, indeed. But I don't think that's an important point here. But it's good, yeah, they were Jews. For them it was not important, but for the rest of the Spanish nation, which was Christian nation, it was important because the Pope said, no problem. And I think why they asked him was exactly for that reason. They said, listen, not that you blame us later for that, as you used to do. So hey, your Pope said it's okay. Okay, and I think that's why they did it. Not that they cared about it, but they knew the reaction, they knew the answer. So indeed, so the Portuguese. Now they came. Why we know also that many of the slaves were Muslims actually, okay, is through research that has been done by a certain Dr. Abdul Hakim Quick, who is an American, and he has done a lot of research in the last couple of decades actually with regards to Africa, and especially West Africa, where most of the slaves came from. Okay? And as we said, in Africa, hopefully if you remember the first time, there were many states, there were many nations, there were many empires that time in Africa already. And the empires were fighting. And they would take slaves, they would enslave other people like the Europeans would do. They would basically, prisoners of war, they would take them and they would then sell them to the Europeans, especially the Portuguese first. Because, you know, such a tiny nation, you know, what could they do in Africa? But how they could get into Africa was because the empires in Africa were fighting. And there was one king against the other, so they got the Portuguese on their side, so we fight together against them. Boom, the Portuguese were there, they could build a fort, another fort came, after them the Spaniards came, after them the British came, the French came, everybody else, the Dutch came. And that's how in the end Africa got finished. Okay?
Have they rebuilt themselves?
Who?
Africa.
Have they rebuilt themselves? Ask the question yourself.
Not well.
Trying.
That's exactly what it goes back to. The problems that Africa faced, Africa as a continent, go back to that time.
Yeah, but the trade is not doing it anymore, so why are they rebuilding themselves?
You know, they took, during the time of the slave trade, around 300 to 400 years. That all happened within 300 to 400 years. Within this time, they took all possible males and females, but mainly males, who could build up a nation. There was nobody to build up Africa anymore after they'd done everything. They destroyed Africa at that time. They took the people, the population that was of importance for the Africans, they took them all away. Okay? They destroyed also the cultural backbone of Africa. There was nothing anymore these people could look back to. And it's the richest continent in the world. It has everything there. From gold to diamonds to everything. Everything is in Africa. But it has become the poorest one. Okay? So, Africa could not build itself. And what did we say about Africa? You remember? Look at that time. Look at the only Christian state there was in Africa was in Ethiopia. Habasha, Abyssinia. That was the only Christian state. A little bit in the north. But furthermore, everything else was either Muslim or pagan. The Christians did not know about Africa until they went there in the 15th, 16th century, until they started the slave trade. And Islam was there already from the very beginning, from the 7th and 8th century. The Berbers went from the north down to West Africa. And how did they spread Islam? By the sword, right?
No.
How did they spread Islam?
They said like
through trade. Trade.
Yes.
Okay? Subhanallah. Islam was spread by the sword. That's what people keep saying. Now remember these things when you hear these things, right? It's absolutely wrong. Right?
What about Algeria? Because I've heard it's not quite like that. There was a queen, the mountain people, the Berbers.
Yeah.
And they said they'll either come to Islam and join the state or we fight. Now I'm not sure why they come to say this to her, but that is the reason why.
Look, the Berbers, it took them really a while. The Berbers, they fought the Berbers quite hard. To be honest, what happened in North Africa, there was quite, you know, from the moment 670 on, the Berbers were fighting the Arabs. Okay, until 700. But by 700, the whole Berber nation accepted Islam. Not because of the fights, but as a nation, they're quite, I don't know if you deal with North Africans nowadays, but if you deal with Moroccans, Algerians, Tunisians, you see that these people are quite strong and stubborn people. They're very stubborn people. So even if it was wrong, even if they saw that Islam was maybe a good religion, still, because of their stubbornness, going back to their ancestors like the Quraysh, you know, they were still fighting the Muslims for the sake of fighting. Okay? So if we look at that, yes, there were revolts, there were fightings among the Berbers, the Berbers against the Arabs, but it was not necessarily like they're trying to do it nowadays, that it was the Arab Muslims who came and took over and the Islamized them on purpose or by force and all this. That was not like this. The Berbers, because once the Berbers accepted Islam, the first thing they did was Spain, going out. They had this zeal in them. People who are forcefully Islamized, you know, are not interested in spreading the deen, right?
So how did the fighting start? Was it like a mutual fighting border or?
Well, look, the Arabs came from Egypt into North Africa, right?
So the Berbers are this side.
The Berbers are mainly here. From what? I don't know if it's back there. But anyway, the Berbers are somewhere are basically all this area. Look, that's Egypt. Do you see Alexandria, Cairo? That's Egypt, yeah?
It came from the trading, didn't it?
Right.
The trading started from there.
Well, the Arabs started trading here, yes, from here. But they were trading already with the Mediterranean people, with Italy, Rome, the Romans, Byzantine Empire, because they used to be part of the Byzantine Empire here in the north. So Libya, Tripoli is in Libya, right?
And was there, we can say this speaking Berbers or their language?
Berber is their language, yes. Very different to Arabic.
What's other Amazigh, what they call Amazigh language?
What's their language?
Amazigh or Amazigh. It is, I think Amazigh it is also like in Tunis or there.
It's probably also Berber language. I don't know this language, but there are many languages there.
Yes.
But they're all part of the Berber group. They're probably all part of the
also
Berber
called in Africa, that's language.
Okay, okay, okay.
We need to read our people.
Okay, I found out this one. Amazigh, you said. Amazigh.
Amazigh, yes.
Amazigh. Okay. Okay, Amazigh language. Okay, but they were all Berbers before, so there were no Arabs before. But when the Arabs came, you know, they mixed with these people. They also married the women and everything. So there was nothing, you know, Islam became a natural part of their life. Not because of fighting and having to, you know, the sword and everything, no. But it became a natural part of life. They intermixed. Look, nowadays, Morocco is a Berber nation still. More than 70% of Morocco are Berbers. Okay? So 30% are Arabs around. Okay? Now, Tunisia has basically nearly no Berbers. Algeria is a Berber nation also, like 80% Berbers, you know? So, you know, but it's a big story. I mean, how the whole issue with the Berbers is a big history, very important to know if you're busy with this area, because the French made use of this division. They still divide North Africa among Berbers and Arabs, and they have used the Berbers on their side, and the Berbers, many Berbers are fighting for a kind of independent state, but independent in the way of, you know, being close to France. So it's all about colonial policy still, okay? It's colonial policy, all right? Just to divide and rule, okay? Especially among the Muslim nations. Okay, so now, okay? Now, again, just to give you a quick idea, because okay, the empires in the West, where many slaves came from, these were mainly Muslim empires, okay? Mali, you have heard of Kunta Kinte, Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa from Mali, he recently, just 2 weeks ago, I read in the National Geographic, he has been declared as the richest man in history ever. Ever. The richest man in history ever, Mansa Musa, from Mali. The Mali Empire, not him himself alone, but the Mali Empire was one of the richest empires ever. Ever. Now, again, gives you a better idea of West Africa, but this should not be, it should be known actually. I don't want to go too deep into this one. The Ghana Empire again.
From Benin also they...
Yeah, Benin in West Africa also. Okay, the Mali Empire that we just mentioned. Mali Empire. Don't forget Timbuktu used to be a center of Muslim learning, right? In Timbuktu nowadays it has become a village. Timbuktu nowadays is nothing else but a village. The library of Timbuktu is still full of books in Arabic that most people there don't even know how to read.
Yes, this is in Mali, as I know, it is more than 60%, they cannot read and write.
Yes.
In Mali.
During the time of Mansa Musa, during the time of the Muslim Empire, there was nearly nobody who couldn't read and write.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It must be the battery, you're right, because I have difficulties moving on this thing. It must be the battery, you're right. Again, the Carrabean Empire. These things, hopefully you remember, we have done them under Africa. We're not going to go through them now, but these are important empires in Africa. They played an important role during the time of, before the colonialists, before the Europeans arrived, okay? Now, the Homer Benin, the Oyo Empire, spread of Islam in Africa. Now, that's a very important point. You know, again, as a reminder, we did it in Africa, but if you look at how Islam spread and where it came from and the time when it spread. If you look at the north, you know, we're talking about Morocco, Algeria, you see that up there? 8th to 12th centuries. So the whole Berber nation moving up to that time, and then from there going up to Spain. During that time, Islam spread in northwest Africa, from there down to West Africa in the 12th to the 15th centuries. During that time, guys, no European had set foot in Africa. Up to the 15th century, there was no European in Africa. The main deen, the main religion, faith in that area was Islam. So we had in Africa Muslim empires, Muslim countries, long before Christian countries were there. Have you ever thought of that? We think because Christianity was there before Islam as a system, everybody thinks, I thought that too. I thought, oh, Christianity was there before. That's not true. That is not true. Okay? Look, East Africa. There were Swahili and Arab traders, mainly from the area of Iran nowadays, Yemen, Oman. They were dealing already before they became Muslim. And that's another important thing that we said also last time. I hope you remember that. We should not forget there is a time when the Arabs, Kuffar, non-Muslims, were dealing with Africans. And there is a time when the Arab Muslims were dealing with Africans. Okay? Arabs were already trading with East Africa in the 3rd and 4th century. They were not Muslim at that time. But from the 6th, 7th century on when they became Muslim, there is a difference. We have to see that. Because nowadays, you know, you have Africans writing, you know, with support of the Europeans, of course, getting money, especially from the French. Come on, I publish your book. Because you're going to write against how bad the Muslim traders were. The Arab Muslims, how bad they were when they came to Africa. Because they have to have something to show, hey guys, it's not only us. It's not only the Europeans who did these bad things against the Africans, but it was also the Arabs. Look, look, look. If you say Christianity is bad because of Europeans doing this to you, what about the Arabs? But we should not forget that there were Arabs dealing with Africa 300 years already, long before Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came up with the message.
Yes.
So there is a clear period of 300 to 400 years before Islam spread into, because there was no Islam before. Okay, Islam is a system. Okay, of course we know Adam alayhi salam was our first prophet. We know these things. You understand what I'm saying? Islam is a system. Okay, brought by the last messenger, Muhammad ﷺ.
So who's that utilized?
I don't remember his name anymore, but there is.
The slave from Africa. That means Arab before. Who was the first?
In East Africa. In East Africa.
Yeah.
Zanzibar, for example, the island of Zanzibar, which is part of Tanzania nowadays, this island was an island belonging to a Persian king. Okay, Oman, yeah, Oman, Iran, all these parts, the whole East Africa, or biggest part of East Africa, the coastal East Africa, was actually belonging to people like from Oman, from Yemen, and from Persia, from Iran. Okay, but also before Islam. Okay, and when Islam took over, there was of course a different period. Okay, so we have to be aware of that. Very important. Now, the Islamic world in 1500, look at that. 1500 before the Europeans set foot in Africa. 1500, that was the Muslim world, okay? So that means in Africa, in West Africa, we had empires like the Mali Empire, Timbuktu, Gao, these are cities in Mali, and the Songhai Empire. Then we had the Mamluk Empire. Then East Africa was part of the Muslim world. All this. So the only part this part here, South and Southwest Africa, was not part of the Muslim world.
Yes.
How come?
On that
It
time,
happened.
Couldn't be bothered.
It just happened. There were not many people living there. There was not high civilization. There was not a lot happening in Southern Africa and Southwest Africa. I don't know exactly why the Muslims didn't go on. It just happened. Maybe they didn't have time to go on from 1500 on because then the Europeans came. Okay? So Allah, I don't know.
no, they start actually from the Cairo. On that time, the Muslims, okay. And they
East.
start, and because they don't like the desert, they follow near the sea until they reach.
Exactly. It was all about coastal, yeah, all the coastal areas, yes. It was all about the coastal areas because that was what was important. To go inside into the jungle was not of importance,
Yes.
right? And Islam came in East Africa. From East Africa, it went down to the center of Africa, to Central Africa, and to the south. So Islam came through the east into the center and South Africa.
Because that's where lands were.
Okay, people who accept, it was traders. Traders from the south and from Central Africa would go to the coastal areas and trade, and they would then come in contact with Muslims and accept Islam and then go back into the interior again, and they would talk to people about Islam, they would make da'wah, and some people accepted Islam in the interior without having any contact with Arabs. Okay, so anyway, now that's the Muslim world in the 1500s before the Europeans came. Okay, now the Caribbean. Why all this introduction? Do you understand why we do Africa before? Africa you have to understand in order to understand that. In order to understand the Americas, you have to understand what happened in Africa. Now when the Europeans arrived in Africa, and they took African slaves, they started the slave trade in the 15th century already, and they took them to the Caribbean Sea because they needed people to work for them, because the Native Americans, either they revolted, or they died. Or they got killed, of course. They died because of the diseases, or they got killed by the Europeans. So they needed people, you know. Do you really expect Portuguese or Spanish people or British people or whatever to really go and cut the sugar plantations? You know, of course not. Okay, so they needed people who would be able to do tough work, who would be able to work in the heat, who would be able to actually do dirty work for them. And who was better than the Africans? Africans in general are known to be stronger than Europeans. And they came from a climate in Africa which was close to the climate in the Caribbean. So it served them the right purpose. It served exactly what they needed them to serve for. Plus, of course, the religious backing, you know, the Christian Catholic Church saying, yes, no problem. They are anyway, they have no soul anyway, so no problem, take them. So, the Caribbean, massive, a big area with very many different islands, yes.
So, you know, when the Africans were sold, who sold them?
Good. Okay. There was war in Africa among tribes. Africa, a massive continent, right? And there were people fighting against each other, which was normal at that time, right? And the tribe that won over another tribe would get them as prisoners of war. So when the Europeans came, they saw that as, hey, let's make some money or whatever, or let's get rid of them, or whatever, you know, they were enemies. So they gave them away, or they sold them actually to the Europeans that time. That's how everything started.
So the slaves were prisoners of war.
They were prisoners of war, yes. But then, what also happened later, was once they allowed the Portuguese and the Spaniards to build forts, because that's how everything started, the Europeans were allowed to build forts, like in Ghana or in Nigeria, at the coast, they were allowed to build forts. So from there, Europeans would go inside into the interior and catch Africans. That would happen later.
So the Europeans sold them, not the African people sold their
No,
own.
at the beginning, also.
Also,
There were also African tribes that were in war with another tribe, and they had them as prisoners of war, and they would sell them to
and
Europeans.
send it to Europeans.
And Europeans who established forts later, they would go themselves and also get them. Yes, so it was both ways. Okay? But to be honest, to be clear and fair about this, it was also Africans who sold them. Just to be fair about it. But it does not justify the trade.
So it wasn't related to skin color. It was related
No, it was not, it had nothing to do, never, slavery. You were not here. Where does this word come from, guys? Quickly, come on. Sklavos? No, not yet. No, yeah, not, Anas, not yet, please.
Thank you.
Anas, no. Please, anybody here? Sisters, Where does slave come from?
Slave come from
It's a Greek
Slav-
word, isn't it?
Africa.
It's a Greek word which is sklavos, okay?
Yeah.
And where does it come from? Who did the Greeks use as the first slaves? Slavic people from what is nowadays the area of the Balkan people. These Serb, Croatians, Russian people, they are Slavic people. And these people used to be used by the Greeks, by the ancient Greeks, because they were tall and blonde, blue-eyed and everything, but not because of the color of the skin. Okay? It was not, they had Africans living in Athens. African people who were free citizens living in Athens. With philosophers, African people. So, it was not the color of the skin at the time that played a role. This became under the Catholics, under the Christians, it became an issue later. For them, because of the Bible passages, and that's what the South Africans were using for the apartheid regime, they would say, do you know this Bible passage? Sam and Ham? Sam and Ham? Isn't it?
Sham and Ham, yeah.
Yeah, what about them? What happened?
Two sons of Nuh.
Nuh alayhi salam, yeah, what happened then?
They had a
According to the Bible. Not according to the Quran. What happened according to the Bible?
They had a conflict. They settled in certain areas in the world.
They saw their father naked. Now, Ham saw his father naked, according to the Bible.
Okay.
Okay? According to the Bible. Saw Nuh alayhi salam naked, and he was cursed because of that. And the people from Ham are the Africans. And the people from Sem are the Semites. The Hebrews and the Arabs. Okay? MashaAllah. So this explains why in South Africa we're apartheid. That explains the slave trade. That explains why African people have no soul.
You're already first.
According to the Bible.
Quoting the Bible. I'm just quoting the Bible, guys. I didn't say anything, right? I'm quoting the Bible, quoting the Pope, right? The Pope is a representative on earth for the Catholics, right? I'm just quoting these people. The Pope is God on earth, guys, according to the Catholics.
Yes.
So whatever he says, infallible. He does not make mistakes, according to the Catholic Church. Okay? Good. Let's move on. You know, we don't have to say a lot, really. Last time, I must say that, really. Last time I went to my son's college, we had parents' evening. And in the whole of Birmingham, I've never met Greeks. And suddenly the whole floor was full of Greeks. I was like, what the hell are they doing here? And really, I have no idea where they came from, but it happened that we were all sitting there waiting for our children, you know, to meet the teachers. Now it happened that my son had told me that he had a Greek girl, there's a Greek girl in his class, and there is another Greek guy a little bit further, and she has a cousin. So somehow half the family is probably, half the village is probably there. So they were all there, the village was probably there. And I heard them speaking Greek, and I was like, oh my goodness, I said, okay. Anyway, I just ignored it for a while. My wife was like, come on, go speak to them, go speak to them. I said, what shall I tell them? Anyway, I made the mistake, I went to speak to them, and it happened that one of them, with a beard, turned out to be a priest. Oh, I said, shucks, I put myself in trouble. So now, he was, the whole time, he was, come, I need to speak to you, I need to speak to you. I said, oh, I need to speak to you, come. I said, what? I was wearing a thobe, by the way. So I was like, so, what are you? What's wrong with you? And my wife was wearing hijab and everything, you know. So I was like, you know, it's all right. I said, I'm here for my son. Who is your son? So my son's name is Yasser. Oh, Yusuf, yeah, Yusuf is all. You know, the only thing they know, Yusuf Ahmed, that's what we know in Greek, right? Yusuf Ahmed, it's all Turks, all Muslims. So I said, no, it's not Yusuf, it's Yasser. But anyway, I said, it's okay, I'm Yasser's father and I'm coming to speak to the teacher, like you are probably here for your daughter or son. I said, yeah, but why are you dressed like this? You know, do we have to discuss this here? I said, I'm waiting for the teacher to speak to. He would not let me go. The teacher came out, he got my wife to go to the room, he was holding me. Honestly, guys, he was holding, we need to speak, we need to talk. Listen, I'm a priest, I need to speak to you. I said, hey, listen. Leave me now, let me go inside, I'll speak to the teacher. When I'm done, I come out and I speak to you, I promise you, okay? No, but tell me, are you Muslim? What? Yes, I said, Alhamdulillah, I'm a Muslim. So he let go. So I went inside, I came out, he was waiting for me at the door. So I came out, he was like, listen, I need to speak to you. Come in, I need to speak to you. I said, listen, I need to go home. You know what? I said, here, get my card, call me. I said, what? I don't understand. How come I'm a priest? I don't understand. How come you're a Muslim? Ah, are you from a Muslim minority in Greece? I said, no. I said, no. I'm not a Turk. I'm not a Pomak. No. I said, I'm a Greek, and I became Muslim 22 years ago. Oh. How? What? Explain to me. What? Oh, I said, listen. It's a big story. We cannot sit here in the hallway and discuss this because people are waiting to go to speak to their teacher. So I told him, please give me a call. But the whole story, and you understand what's happening here. This ignorance, that there are people who accept Islam. Impossible. Especially not Greeks. It cannot be. Because don't forget, why for the Greeks? Why do you think are Greeks so much into this nonsense? Why? It's pride, but why? The Ottoman Empire, but also the Bible, the New Testament is written in?
History, yes.
In Greek.
Yes.
The New Testament is written in Greek. Who was the founder of Christianity really? Paul. Who was Paul? He was Greek. So all this is a national pride, guys. It's pride, nation, our nation. We speak Greek, we are Christians, that's it, So this all played an important role for these people, the way they're looking at Islam and everything. Now, coming back quickly to the Caribbean. So they took Africans, got them to work. Now, according to Dr. Abdul Hakim Quick, a third of the African slaves who arrived in America were actually Muslims. 1/3. And according to sources, it's probably 10 to 15 million Africans who were taken away from Africa. According to other sources, it goes up to the 50, 60, 70 million. We don't know how many people were taken from Africa, but we know that there were a crazy amount. It must have been a crazy amount because Africa was devastated, still is until nowadays. Yes.
And when that happened, in which year?
That started in the 1500s until even end.
More than like 2 up to 7 million. It is like huge at that time.
Exactly, right. We're talking about the whole. We're talking about 300 years of slave trade, right? 300 years. So within these 300 years, we're talking about 10, 15 million, up to 50, 60 million people.
So
within the time of 300 years.
Yes, because there is no war. As you know, as there is more war, things, the men is killed and become less. But as you know, it is in Africa there is no war. That happened at that time.
There were wars. There were wars also in Africa. There were, because at the beginning, when the Europeans arrived, there was a ship or two of 10, 20, 30 Europeans. How could they? They got the slaves delivered by other tribes who were fighting them.
Yes.
So there was war. And that's why the Europeans could set foot in Africa, because there were different tribal wars. Like in America, like in Australia, everywhere the same. That's it. It's all the same. The same history. History repeats itself over and over again. Okay? If we are not, we have to take this as an example for us as Muslims. If we are not united, you have people from outside coming, being able to get into us, into the ummah, That's how it is. And that's how it was that time with the Native Americans in America. That's how it was in Australia. That's how it was in many other countries in Africa. Because Europeans, 10 and 20 and 30 Portuguese guys, and even nowadays, how many people live in Portugal? 11 million people, not even 10 million people. 10 million people, that's all the Portuguese are. At that time, there were even less. How could 10 million people, that time maybe 3, 4 million people, come and conquer? Look at the empire, the Portuguese empire. Started somewhere in Portugal, ended somewhere in Asia. Macau was still Portuguese until recently in China. Yeah.
Were the conquistadors just the Spanish or the Portuguese as well?
Both of them.
So they both colonized America in different areas?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They did. Okay. It gives you a better idea of the Caribbean because it is a very complex area. That's why I'm giving you a second one just to get an idea. There are more than 19 English-speaking. There are 31 countries in the Caribbean, 21 islands, all of them, including the ones in the south, the Guyanas that I mentioned before, and 99 English-speaking, 5 are French-speaking, 4 are Dutch-speaking, and 3 are Spanish-speaking countries. Okay? So, if you look at this island here, the island of Hispaniola, that was one of the first ones actually, this one here, to be colonized. was colonized by the Spaniards first, and the east side, Dominican Republic, is Spanish, and Haiti is French. Okay, Haiti was the first African republic, the first black republic in the world. Jamaica was English, is independent, okay? Now, Puerto Rico nowadays is American, Puerto Rico is Spanish, but it became part of the United States, okay? And so on and so on, okay? Now, this is Dutch here. Curaçao, Aruba, Bonaire is Dutch, this one, these parts here. They are Dutch. So, everybody participated in the slave trade. Every European nation participated in the slave trade. Sugar, you know, cotton and sugar, that was the main reason why they got Africans over to work for them on the plantations. Sugar and cotton, yeah. Well, also these cases were there. There were people who didn't accept the slave trade, white Europeans, in that case it's a British guy. They got married to slaves, but they could not, their women, their wives could not earn or own anything. They could not inherit anything, okay? So these things happened, okay, as well. So there were people who were against the slave trade, and the British were the first ones to abolish it in 1804. The first ones to abolish it were the British. Now, this was the typical triangle that you will find everywhere. So what did they do? Profit 200%. They would go to Africa, take slaves to America, sell them. From there, they would take sugar, tobacco, and cotton, take it to Europe, sell it there, take from there textiles, room, and manufactured goods to Africa. And that's the whole triangle. And the ships were never empty. The ships were always full. Lloyd's Bank in this country, do you know who made them rich? This made them rich. Lloyd's Insurance Company, this. They came up with insurances. They say, listen, you guys, you need to insure your slaves.
Oh yeah, so when they killed them, they just threw them on the thingy.
Exactly. And that's what have you seen this movie? There's a movie, a very interesting movie, which shows you exactly how it happened. They would throw them overboard and then claim to insurance and say, listen, they died on their way. Now the insurance has to prove to them, no, that's not true. Look how they were dealing with people. Look how they were dealing with people. Because again, as we said, anyway, they were not people, they had no soul, right? Okay, according to the Catholic Church. So, basically, indeed, I need a new battery.
I had the first boat.
Look at that. That's a boat. I forgot that I had it. Look at that. Look at this boat. Look at this ship. It could not take more than 300 people, but there were 5,000 on there. 5,000, subhanallah. And the way they were sleeping for months, like this, lying on the ground next to each other, sleeping for months like this. You know how many of them died on their way to the Americas? Most of the times, 2/3 of them died. So the insurances came in there. Look at that. You know, you must be shaitan to think of something like that. You must come and say, listen, guys, you need to insure them because in case your cattle dies, we pay for them. Look at that. Look at that. It's satanic, isn't it? It's satanic, diabolic, absolutely, no doubt about it, you know? Now, that's an old map of that time Africa, right? West Africa, where most of the slaves came. Okay, now this gives you an idea of nowadays America, the ethnic composition of America nowadays. Most of the black people nowadays, African people nowadays, of course, most of them are mixed, right? So this one here, the red one is mixed people. Most of the people are mixed, of course. But the biggest population of African people can be found in Haiti, in the Dominican Republic, in Jamaica, up here. Do you see that black circle up there? This one here. This is Haiti, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and Brazil. But Brazil has more mixed people. Okay? And this is what happened to the Americas. There was not one black person before, except one very important thing that we are going to mention also today. According to research that has been done, we're now talking about African slaves. We're now talking about African slaves, right? There were black people. Columbus, according to his diary, he saw black people, African people, with his own eyes when he arrived in Hispaniola, in the island. Why? How come? because Mali, Muslim Malian people were dealing already and trading with Africans, with Americans. And some of them stayed over there. But we'll come to speak about this one. Now, where is this here? Holland, right, isn't it? Now, it's not Holland, but it is indeed Dutch, purely Dutch architecture. That's in Aruba. Aruba is an island in the Caribbean. It was a Dutch colony. And that's why they made a small little Holland out of it, right? Just to give you an idea. That's what the colonialists and these people who imported their culture, their language, their tradition over to these people. Now, interestingly enough, there are mosques in the Caribbean. Every island nowadays in the Caribbean has a mosque. At least one Islamic center. At least one. Okay? This is again in the Dutch Antilles, the Dutch, Aruba, Bonaire, Curaçao, one of these islands that belonged to the Dutch before. And they have built mosques there and Islamic centers throughout the Caribbean. Now, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, you see that these are the countries that we mentioned before. There, very interestingly enough, the biggest population in the Americas of Muslims can be found there. Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. Suriname has a population of 23 to 25% Muslims. Whereas Guyana, around 12 to 13, and Trinidad and Tobago, around 11. So this is the center of Islam. Trinidad and Tobago is up there. Do you see that? Trinidad and Tobago? There. Do you see that? This island like a button letter. This Trinidad and Tobago, then Guyana, and Suriname. In Suriname, interestingly enough, because it was a Dutch colony, it's the only country in America you will find Indonesian people. Indians, Indonesian people, which came because of the Dutch. Indonesia used to be a Dutch colony, by the way. So because of that, that's why I said if there are Indonesian people here, they would know Suriname. So Indonesian people were taken as slaves, actually, also to Suriname, to work for them. Contract workers. What they did later with the Indians. Now, where do you think is this? Jamaica, where? Which one is Jamaica? What is Jamaica? The only thing you know, Caribbean people is Jamaica. We said there were 32 countries, right? 32 islands. It's not Jamaica. None of them is Jamaica.
But you just said the two words.
What did I say?
You said one of them was Jamaica.
Did I?
Yeah.
Is it which one?
Ah.
I said, okay, that was probably what I said. It's which one of, actually which country is it, I said. Or where do you think, it's different countries in the Caribbean. Where would you find them? And interestingly enough, I put this picture on purpose here. This one here, that's a lady with a niqab. Look at this man.
Yeah.
This could be Caribbean people here, right? Now, what do you think is this? Yeah. In the Bahamas. This is the Bahamas.
What is Bahamas?
This one is Bahamas. This family is in the Bahamas.
No, I talk about Bahamas. What is Bahamas?
It's Caribbean. It's in the Caribbean, under close to Florida. You know, South America. I mean, in the Caribbean. You know, I'll show you the map later, inshallah. We go back. Keep this. I'll show you the map, inshallah. Okay. So this one is Bahamas. This one here.
Suriname.
Very close. Guyana. This one is also Guyana. Okay. And this one is Suriname. I'll show you something else from Suriname, by the way. Now, look at this. Now, this is the Bahamas. Look, above Cuba, you see Cuba, Florida. The Bahamas are in between, Bahamas Islands. Okay? Now, Nassau is the capital, so, okay, that's Suriname. That's during Eid in Suriname. Okay? That's during Eid in Suriname, and interestingly enough, up there you see that's a synagogue. The first synagogue in the Americas was built there. Synagogue, Jewish temple. And this is a mosque.
This is Indian ones, like most.
Yes, Indian, like, yeah, many of them are Indians, yes. Originally Indians. This is Eid, the Eid prayer out in the park. This is a family who is my wife's, let me think. No, okay, they are far cousins, okay? But it's a family in Suriname. And this one again is the same masjid that you can see up there is this one, okay? Now, Indian style, right? Because of where the people originally came from. But you also have African people who have accepted Islam, right? African Caribbean. Okay, here. The Bahamas, do you see them up here? Bahamas there, Cuba here, Dominican Republic, Haiti. These are all pictures all over the Caribbean. These two are, you will not believe, but Haiti. Haiti has a growing, rising population of Muslims, especially after the earthquake. Have you heard of the earthquake?
Yeah.
Big earthquake happened in Haiti. Now, a very interesting remark that I got, Islamic Relief went there to help. Islamic Relief from the States, from America. And they have now established a program for themselves, radio, TV program. The Muslims have become very strong in Haiti, mashallah, nowadays. And you know, a quote that I got from somebody from there who said, who mentioned, you know, on the channel, why they accepted Islam. Very simple. He said, finally, when the Muslims came, they taught us how to wash properly. Because diseases were spreading after the earthquake. Diseases were spreading because of hygienic reasons. Okay? So the Muslims taught them how to make wudu. They taught them, listen, you go in between, eh? Look at this one. Well, you know, by the way, the proper, don't forget, there are some people who don't know that. But the proper way of making wudu is going between your hands and between your fingers and between your toes. This takes bacteria away. Subhanallah. Yeah. Do you see, I don't know if you realize, especially the born Muslims, honestly no. I don't know if you born Muslims realize what you have there. I don't know if you have ever sat down, or if you sit down and think like, what the hell, I'm a Muslim, what can I do? You know, have you ever thought of what the deen you have, the deen that you have, subhanallah? There are people, I've seen them myself in Arabia, in Saudi, in Emirates, in Kuwait, in Qatar. You know, I've seen people who are actually ashamed of being Muslims. Honestly, I was asked, you're European, why are you Muslim? Really, in such a tone, like, you know, why are you Muslim? Man, you could be free, man, free, European, free. And you accepted Islam? What's wrong with you? Really, people told me, what is wrong with you? So, wow. I'm not going to discuss this because I don't think that this goes through. So, you don't know what gold you have, really. You know, subhanAllah. So, it is really gold. And people have realized it in other parts of the world. You know, people have realized it in other parts of the world where you don't expect Muslims, okay? Now, they set up tents for these people after the earthquake. They set up mosques also there. Small masajid, of course, they don't need big ones, it's good. And the important thing is, they taught them how to wash and properly, how to make ghusl, how to make wudu. People accepted Islam because of that. Because of wudu and ghusl. Can you imagine that? Not because of Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. They didn't know that.
Yes.
They said, why? You know, you're teaching me, you know, going in between, you know why? Because of that bacteria, blah, blah, blah. And the people accepted Islam because these people came with something different than these missionaries. Okay? With something useful than these missionaries. So, we need some letters, guys, tomorrow. Now, again, some mosques throughout the Caribbean. Just give you a quick overview because we're going to finish, inshallah, now. Yeah. Okay, and we're going to finish here. Now, I hope, now, any questions, quickly? Any questions that you have, anything that is important to be asked now, today, because we will go on with Asia tomorrow, inshallah. We're not going to get stuck on this one as we did earlier today.
Was there any Muslims involved in the slave trade?
Well, look, unfortunately, because he didn't have too much time, but yes, indeed. Dr. Abdul Hakim Quick describes, for example, that during the slave trade, you had 1/3 of the Africans who came over were Muslims. Now, with regards to Muslim traders taking them to America, it was impossible because they had not. Muslims were busy on the other side with the Al-Andalus. They were fighting for their lives, and Ottoman Empire was coming from Asia. So there was nobody with regards to Muslim trading Muslims or Africans in America. But what is said is that most probably on Christopher Columbus's ship and all the others who came, there were Muslim navigators who helped him to actually go wrong, not go to Asia, but go to India, go to America. And others went indeed on purpose to America, and others went to Africa, to the Mali king, to ask him about old maps, by the way. There are old maps that Al-Idrisi, have you heard of Al-Idrisi? Al-Idrisi was a Muslim cartographer who was living in Sicily. And he had actually made already maps that indicate that they knew about America. Okay? The Muslims in Al-Andalus knew about America, the Americans. How could they have known about them if they had no contact and nothing came? No, somehow. Okay? And the maps are quite detailed. All right. So there's really a lot still. There's really a lot that needs to be discussed. But I'm just giving you some hints here. The same I was saying with the last meeting. Just some hints to look deeper into them. It's massively rich, guys. You have seen how rich our history is. And you know that history, again, I haven't mentioned any dates today, have I? No. It's not about dates. Because that's how they destroy the interest in history at schools. That's what they're teaching you, and me, and everyone. They're telling you, you have to learn, the exams are about what happened in 1492, what happened in 1493, what happened in 1494. You understand? So it's killing the subject. All right? It is all about, you know, to understand the connection, what happened, who, where, what. Okay? That's what it's all about. Before we leave, guys, somebody, well, I don't know, the girls are not here, but last time I remember that I was asked for some more books. I have the books here. I have some books here, and I've got some new CDs, by the way. Last one that came out is The Three Astonishing Ottoman Capitals, Bursa, Edirne, and Istanbul, Constantinople, of course. Now, that's a DVD alone, documentary. It costs £5 for today. The books, each one of them a tenner, or three of them together 25. Okay? So please take a look at what we have. You help me with these projects in order to keep them going. My documentaries, in order to be able to travel and to do all this. You help me immensely with that here. So please, if you can just go, get into your pockets and just help me out with that, inshallah, it would be highly appreciated. I will be again tomorrow here, inshallah, and on Thursday. Tomorrow Asia, and on Thursday UK and Australia.
Same time, inshallah.
Same time, inshallah, okay?